Hi, and welcome to Brainstorm, Changemakers by Timo. In this series, we're talking to experts, activists, and movers who are shaking things up in the neurodivergent space. My name is Bo, my pronouns are they, them, and I'm the Inclusion and Belonging Lead at Timo, a Danish neuro-inclusion company that gives people the planning power to take charge of their daily lives. Today, I have with me Nik Hobrecker. Nik is the founder of ADHD Vision, which is a global movement aimed at increasing productivity and self-awareness for neurodivergent people that don't want to sacrifice their mental well-being. With over 200 million views worldwide over the last 2 years, Nik has built a loyal following of people who are inspired to live their best lives with their brain. Hi, Nik. We are so happy to have you. I would love if you tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, so first of all, thank you so much for having me. Delighted to be on this Changemaker series podcast. It means a lot to me. My name is Nik. I'm 25 years old. I got diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 19 in college. You know, we have a very similar upbringing, as we discussed earlier. I was raised internationally, raised in Germany in the beginning, and then for 7 years I moved to Dubai and studied entrepreneurship in college. I always had a calling toward entrepreneurship. If that was ADHD related or not, I'm not sure, but probably was. And then I started a pretty successful career in sales. I moved to London after college, got promoted like 4 times within 3 years. And I'm like, is this me? Is this my brain? What's happening here? At this point, I was already diagnosed with ADHD. I went through therapy when I was in college, I should mention before, which is when I got the diagnosis. My whole world explained itself to me in that one moment. So many questions answered. Thank you so much to everybody that had literature back in the day that I could read. Dr. Ned Hallowell, Dale Archer, really the key figures of our time for ADHD. And then whilst I was in sales, I actually started creating content about ADHD. I actually already started in college on YouTube, but this was a bit more of a lower quality production. I put a lot of time into it, didn't even show my face. Had a little character called Bob who was on the screen kind of waving. It was like an animated character. And then at some point I was just like, listen, I think I can reach a lot more people, spread awareness about ADHD and teach them how to thrive with it like I did if I show my face. I did that, and during that time, a little app called TikTok made its first appearance, which then also obviously helped reach more people. We then grew to over 2 million followers on all platforms where we are now within just under 2 years. And I'm pleased to say that a lot of people relate with the content. I'm grateful to all the feedback that I'm getting. And now I'm a full-time content entrepreneur, trying my best to educate people on ADHD. I've got my own scientific team in the background, always fact-checking and making sure I don't impulsively make videos about something that I want to, that's not science-related. And I just also share my own experience. I think there's a lot of things behind the label ADHD that don't get talked about enough. I've got this life lesson series of mine where I talk about how certain symptoms impact your life and what I've learned over the last 6-7 years to help counteract that, to help thrive with ADHD. So that's me in not sure if that's a nutshell answer, but that's definitely.
Awesome. Yeah, you also shared, that when you got your diagnosis, it kind of like explained so much about you. And I'm wondering what actually helped you figure out that you're neurodivergent and what made you seek out a diagnosis?
Yeah, that's a great question. I always felt, and this is such a cliche saying nowadays, but I really did feel like I was different from a lot of people in school. A lot of people didn't really, weren't on the same wavelength that I was on. I felt like I was always 2 steps ahead or 2 steps behind. And I had a few people that I related with. It turns out they, usually also had ADHD because we were just on that same level. And then, I didn't know what it was. I just didn't know what it was. It was an open question mark for me, which is when I decided to seek therapy. Within the 2nd or 3rd session, I don't really remember that well, but is when the ADHD question came up from the therapist. And I was like, well, this sounds interesting. She gave me a book, which I just devoured, right? The only time you can read a book with ADHD is when you're interested. And I devoured this book. It was gone within, I finished it within like a week. And all questions answered at that point. I ended up going to a psychiatrist, got my official diagnosis that way. In Germany, ADHD wasn't that big of a topic back then. Nowadays, we're slowly getting there.
Nice. And yeah, what was that diagnosis process in Germany like? What are the hoops that you kind of have to jump through?
It's not easy, but it wasn't hard. For me, I was very fortunate that I had access to a very good therapist who knew what she was talking about. And, like I said, after the third session, it was already suspected that I have ADHD. So, it was first seeing the therapist, her referring me to a psychiatrist, who then gave me a long questionnaire with behaviors that, again, every single behavior was just describing my life. My partner at the time also got one, so I was evaluated by her. I evaluated myself. We went back, we had a talk for about 60 minutes, which is when I got the official diagnosis.
Okay, cool. And what would you say the overall neurodivergent landscape in Germany looks like? You said that we're working on the language and kind of the acceptance of neurodivergent diagnoses, but how does it compare to maybe the US or the UK, who are maybe a bit ahead?
Yeah, it's interesting. I can't speak too much on German diagnosis, because obviously I did get one, but ever since then I've been traveling. And my content mainly reaches English-speaking countries, right? You've mentioned the US, the UK, where everything is a lot more at the forefront. It's talked about more. And in Germany, I did get the feeling that it wasn't talked about as much. It wasn't that much in the media, but nowadays, you've got some German shows. I recently got sent a few clips from people who are now actively talking about their ADHD, right, on these shows. So I think we've just started, and I think, very fortunate enough to be part of this big movement that's happened over these last few years, where people are just more mentally, or more aware of their mental health, want to talk about it more, and are just really, courageous as well for being so open. And obviously social media provides a perfect platform to do that. So I think we're getting there in Germany, that's for sure.
You talked a bit about how your audience is mainly in English-speaking countries. Have you ever created any content in German? And also, is there language to talk about neurodiversity in affirming ways in German?
Oh, for sure. So I think, I just recently, I was at the airport in Hamburg, and I saw a German book about ADHD, ADHD in adulthood. And I thought that was quite awesome because it was literally in a bookstore, one of the first books. So it really shows that, the topic has reached German minds. It's reached the culture. And do I want to ever create content in German? 100,000%. I think my content, in English, obviously can reach similar-minded people in German. But my goal is just to raise as much awareness and help as many people as possible. And, seeing as English is the kind of world language, and I can reach, maybe even 1 billion people with the English language. It's the reason for why I'm sticking to English at the moment. I do always get people in my DMs or in the comments, asking me things in German, where obviously I respond in German. But it really comes down to the possible reach that you can have, the amount of people that you can reach with the content,
Absolutely. Yeah. You talked a bit about, Bob back in the days, and you're not showing your face, but how has your content changed since you were diagnosed?
It's changed so much, really for the better. I mean, looking back at the content I used to make, I'm obviously still very proud of it. And it's always very humbling to watch it because, I've come a long way since. I still stand up behind everything I've said back then. It was just, a bit too simplified, I think. So nowadays, I read a plethora of books on the subject. I talk with a lot of experts, and it's just, with ADHD, there's no one-size-fits-all answer. Everybody has different versions of it, and it's just important to be mindful of the fact that detail also helps when creating or when trying to help people. So for instance, in these life lessons that I do, they're only 60 seconds long, but I really try to, look at ADHD from the top and then kind of very quickly dissect what the main problem is, right? And then what the solution is. So my goal is to create 50 life lessons. These 50 life lessons, I think, in my head are already there. Should I ever write a book? That is the first book that I will write, the 50 ADHD life lessons, because I think there's just so much to talk about in regards to ADHD. It's not just, it can be as simple as, you should exercise more, you should eat the right food, of course. But when it comes to daily struggles, everybody has a different environment that they're in, right? So to really reach people and to show that, they are not alone, it does take some kind of, it takes a bit of analytical brain work to get there. So I'm a real nerd about ADHD. That's what I'm trying to say.
Hence your science team as well.
Exactly. Yes.
Do you think you found neurodivergent community through your content creation? And if not, where have you found neurodivergent community?
Yeah, I mean, it's the most awesome community ever out there, and the one that I have, it's so validating, and you know, to just also for me. I mean, I'm not just making this for other people. For me, I'm so incredibly grateful to read the comments that I get on my posts saying people relate to this, and because it's not always, you know, I do these life lessons. They're based on my own experience, right? But always having people relate to them is one of the main reasons for why I do what I do as well. It's what gets me up in the morning and just motivates me to keep on going. You know, motivates my ADHD brain.
Yes, absolutely. Tell us a bit more about ADHD Vision and what kind of the spark for creating that world was.
Yeah. So the name is just came to me quite randomly, you know, as usually is the case for content creators, you know. Look at Smosh, you know, equals 3 back in the day. They always had. I'm not comparing myself to these big accounts, but I'm just trying to say that, you know, everybody has like this random spark of like, oh yeah, you know, that's the name. So the name for me is, you know, it's twofold. For one, there's a vision for ADHD. There's a mountain that you can climb, and I think everybody who has ADHD can climb that mountain with the right tools. You know, that's why also kind of the logo is like this mountain peak. And then secondly, it's, you know, ADHD Vision. It's the way you see the world. So it's not just, you know, that you're easily distracted. It's a whole different way of seeing the world, you know, when you have ADHD. And a lot of the time, media doesn't pick up on that, or people without ADHD don't pick up on that. So yeah, that's kind of the twofold meaning there.
Yes, awesome, cool. And you know, what are the benefits to being a content entrepreneur, being your own boss, and maybe what are some of the downsides? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, definitely a lot of upsides, definitely also a few downsides. So when I decided to become my own boss, I guess it was the most liberating thing ever, because as you may know, putting yourself in a box when you have ADHD and, you know, trying to fight with somebody else to get your ideas across, you know, you're going to shut down. You're not going to get your best work done. You really need, what I found is you need to be able to authentically live your freedom. And that's what I've found, you know, this content creation does for me. I can, you know, I have these ideas, I create content about these ideas within 3 days. So it's a very quick and easy way for my brain to work. And it's not easy. You know, I haven't taken like days off for 2 years. Recently was the first week I took off with content. I'm always thinking about this content. And as Dr. Halliwell says, you know, we've got a Ferrari brain with really bad brakes. So that's been one of the issues, you know, putting on those brakes sometimes. But luckily for me, I've got an amazing team around me. You know, Danny, Janine, these are people that help me get organized, that help me build up, you know, this toolkit of helpful resources for people with ADHD.
I am also wondering how you and your team come up with ideas for content. Is it mostly inspired by your own lived experience, or have you kind of run out of ideas in that regard?
The nice thing about our brain, Bo, is that we never run out of ideas. You know, that's honestly one of the main benefits of having ADHD, just this constant creativity. And I find myself, you know, late at night coming up with content. It's like, I'm obsessed in a certain way, positively obsessed about, you know, these niche behaviors about ADHD as well. So how we come up with content, for one, is I have a theory, right? I ask the scientific team if this could be correct, and we look at existing studies in the field to help prove that theory, right? So we recently had a big video on TikTok, got like 10 million views, about listening to the same song on repeat with ADHD. And the reason for why that is because there's been studies done where when people listen to their favorite song, it produces a lot of dopamine. And it's not just about the dopamine that it produces, it's about the anticipation before like your favorite bridge or your favorite part of that song, and you know, for us, dopamine is everything. So it's a really easy and predictable way to boost your mood and motivation naturally and immediately. And then there were other studies that we cited on like theta waves and, you know, how it also makes you more calm. So that's just one example. We look at kind of these big topics on social media and see how we can explain them scientifically, you know, so that there's also some like more backbone behind it, because everybody nowadays just thinks, oh yeah, I mean, we all have ADHD, right? If you get to that point where you think that when you don't explain the science behind the behaviors, you know? And that's my mission now. We don't want to stigmatize ADHD. We don't want to tell everybody they have ADHD. We want to show them through structure and entertainment why this symptom is linked to ADHD. You know.
I like that too. It also makes research accessible for folks who don't have the capacity to focus on like a 20-page research document. So I really like that as well.
Yeah, and I can't either, Bo. You know, that's why I've got my team, and they summarize it greatly. You know, we've got Claire Sawyer who's working with us. She does a great job, and I couldn't do it without them, because honestly, research is great. You know, we have to give the utmost praise to all the scientists out there, but it's very difficult to access for the average person with ADHD. So that's why, instead of writing a book, I prefer to create short form content that can easily be consumed for the ADHD brain, basically.
Excellent. Yeah. I'm also, I'm wondering what a day in the life for you looks like.
Oh, very boring.
How do you structure your day to be friendly to your brain?
Yeah, boring, you know? People always think I have these crazy days, you know, I'm always traveling. I am always traveling, right? So I do need this novelty to help me stay inspired and motivated. Right now I'm in Cyprus. Beginning of the year I was in Thailand. These are places that are incredibly beautiful, and I love the videos that we can shoot there. And it just also gives you different perspectives, you know, and I need that. So my brain always needs this touch of novelty, like overarchingly within a year, you know, with like 5-6 different destinations, but then also daily. So what I like to do is I always like to stay on top of new ideas. You know, I don't only want to make my life about ADHD, because we are all more than just our ADHD. So what I like to do, I shut off after 5 p.m. I close my laptop, no more ADHD-ness from that point onwards. And then I read a book, right? But something completely different. So my favorite movie of all time is Interstellar. And I recently started a book called The Science Behind Interstellar, where he actually explains, so this was the person who had the idea for this whole movie, who got Christopher Nolan, the director, involved. And for me, that's a beautiful escape, you know, but it's also something completely new, you know, physics. It's just quantum physics is the word I was looking for. It's something completely new, completely different to what I do, and I need that, you know. But day to day, going through like my day from A to Z would be, I wake up, try to get a workout in, you know, go for like a short run out in nature if I can, get sunlight in my eyes for the first 1 hour. After waking up, you know, go outside. I then plan my day. I have different productivity tools like Sidekick browser, you know, where I've got a nice little list that I can go through of what needs to be done. I don't plan in too many things, because that will get me overwhelmed, but I like to prioritize like my top 3 things. And then I just start, you know, and I go with the flow. I try to do the most difficult thing first. Usually doesn't work out, right? Because my brain just wants to do what it wants to do. But I found having goals next to you at all times throughout the day, like on your browser, for example. And Sidekick browser is something I can really recommend. You know, this is not sponsored or anything, but it's a great tool for entrepreneurs. And just having that on the side, always keeping you on track is something I found helps really well. Food-wise, I like to keep it high protein. Right? So I don't like cooking. I feel like, I know people like it. I don't. I try my best to do meal prep, right? And I also have different services that send me meals, right? High in protein, complex carbohydrates, just, you know, to really keep my brain on the level that it needs to be. I don't take medications. This is very important for me. And then I usually get another workout in after lunch, where my brain kind of dips. So this is when I go to the gym, you know, have a bit of a harder session, and then, you know, that workout provides me with energy for 4 hours after that. I sometimes have to be careful that I don't overdo it with the workout, because then I can't sleep. Sometimes my brain goes so haywire in the gym. I just keep, you know, trying to up myself, and I'm very competitive in that way, and I realize it's also my ADHD. But there's nothing better than being competitive with yourself, you know? So, yeah, I know I kind of jumped through all the, you know, I kind of jumped from, you know, place to place to place with that answer, but I hope that that kind of helps.
Absolutely, yeah. And do you have any advice for neurodivergent folks that maybe want to get into content creation? How do you get started? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think it's a great opportunity nowadays that we have to be able to get into content creation. And I think it's a very ADHD friendly job or occupation because, you're your own boss. We need that freedom, like I said, and you can be very creative. It's difficult in a certain sense because you first need to build something up. So I didn't make the jump out of my full-time job until I was quite comfortable, financially. And then, once you're at that point, you need to really have systems in place to help you sustain your income. Because as a content creator nowadays, with TikTok, Instagram, everything changes from day to day. The TikTok Creator Fund doesn't pay as well as people might think. YouTube ad revenue, YouTube is a whole different game, right? You need to really put in a lot of effort for the content. So, my advice would be to just be aware of the fact that it's very fun, but that everybody wants to do it right now. So you're really gonna have to find your niche and keep going from there.
So in the age of hustle culture, I'm wondering, how you think about the intersection of mental well-being and being productive, and also how you kind of feature both in your content.
Yeah, so I think it's important to, not praise hustle culture too much. I think it's a great tool to get motivated and to get inspired. But at the same time, hustle culture gave rise to this whole mental health movement in my eyes, because a lot of people felt like they couldn't be themselves. They had to suppress their emotions to get to this ultimate destination, whether that's money, success, happiness. I learned that the journey is the destination, right? So having fun on that journey, being yourself is where it's at, and working with your brain and not against it. Don't force, we can't force ourselves to concentrate with ADHD. We can't force ourselves to do a lot of things. But once we discover authentically what we live for, and we follow that path, that's where we have abundant energy, So I think hustle culture should come after discovering who you are, what you want to be, and following those like that interest-based path instead of just money. Because for us, it's going to lead to burnout,
Absolutely. So how do you work with your brain and not against it?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that I like to do. Few I already mentioned. Exercise is my biggest thing. It's been proven time and time again, the benefits of exercise for your body extend to your brain, right? The dopamine, the norepinephrine boost that you get, I can just repeat that sentence, the dopamine and the norepinephrine boost that you get from that just, boost your focus, your motivation. And something else, a practical tip, if you would ask me what can people do practically, quickly, would be cold exposure. Right? Cold showers. Get into it slowly though. I know a lot of people are like, oh, cold showers, especially if you're living in a place where it's already cold. I get that you might not want to do that, But even like a splash of cold water can help increase your dopamine. And it can last for several hours. Maybe not that splash of water. You will need to do like a 2-minute shower in order to get those, hourly benefits. But it increases those brain chemicals by a ton. And again, we have to credit, Wim Hof, the Iceman, for this approach. So yeah, exercise, cold showers, and there's a lot of more things that you can do, right? Mindfulness, meditation. What I like to do is just, 10 minutes in the morning to kind of center myself, right? Put on a guided meditation on YouTube and just listen to it, and kind of soak up all those good and positive vibes, and then just start the day. So those are a few things that I do. I'll do a lot more, right? Obviously I have an ADHD toolkit where I go into all of those, the ADHD success guide that I have, with about 17 videos. They're based on over, 20 research studies. All that can be found there. But like practically, those are the things that I would start doing first. If I just got my diagnosis, try doing those things, see how you feel. And, don't expect yourself to be 100% consistent, but just keep coming back to it, right? Like Rocky Balboa, just keep getting back up.
Exactly. It takes time to build those healthy, lasting habits, for sure. As we close out, I am wondering, what's next for you and for ADHD Vision?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of exciting things on the horizon. I just really want to come to a next level when it comes to content creation now. We've got the scientific team in place. We've got a lot of ideas that still need to be put into practice for content. So over the next year, I just plan to keep building on the content that we already have, shed even more awareness, help even more people, and who knows, maybe I'll even release my my first book if my brain allows me to do so. We'll see.
Fingers crossed. And how can folks stay up to date on your work?
Yeah, I mean, I've got an ADHD Achievers newsletter, which is completely free. If you want, weekly motivation together with tool recommendations, life lessons, exclusive stuff that I don't share on my social media, you can just follow that newsletter. And you can find all those links on my profile, ADHD Vision, on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
Awesome. Well, Nik, thank you so much for your time. It was so nice to chat with you, to learn a bit about your history and your life and also what's next. And that is all for today, folks. Stay tuned for more interviews in the series. If you have anyone that you want to recommend that we interview, please write us either at community@timo.dk. You can also find us on social media at TimoApp. So send us a DM, send us an email. We would love to hear your feedback. And yeah, thank you for tuning in. Bye.